There's something quietly powerful about a plant that refuses to die, even when you forget about it. Not just survive, but actually grow. New leaves, longer roots, stronger stems, all sitting in nothing but a jar of water. No soil, no mess, no complicated routines. And honestly, if you've ever struggled with overwatering, pests in soil, or just the sheer effort of traditional gardening, this changes everything. Because what if I told you some of the most beautiful houseplants don't just tolerate water, they thrive in it for years, even decades? What if your next plant wasn't just decoration, but something you could pass down, cutting by cutting, generation after generation? Before we get into the plants themselves, take a second to support Garden Smart. Hit that like button, share this with someone who needs easier gardening in their life, drop a comment about your favorite plant, and subscribe for more practical, no-nonsense growing tips every week. Now let's get straight into it. Why growing plants in water actually works. Most people assume soil is essential, but soil is really just a delivery system for nutrients and stability. When you remove soil, you're not removing the plant's ability to grow. You're simplifying how it gets what it needs. Water delivers oxygen and hydration directly to the roots, and as long as you occasionally refresh it, the plant continues to develop. What makes water propagation so effective is visibility and control. You can see root growth in real time, monitor plant health instantly, and avoid common problems like root rot from overwatering soil. In many cases, plants adapt so well that they remain in water permanently, forming what are known as water roots, which are perfectly suited to this environment. So, if there's one detail that determines success or failure, it's the node. This small bump along the stem is where roots and new growth emerge. Without it, a cutting will just sit in water and, well, do nothing. But with it, you actually unlock the plant's full regenerative ability. When you're taking a cutting, always make sure at least one node is submerged in water. Leaves should stay above the surface to prevent rot. Honestly, this simple step is what turns a trimmed vine into a thriving new plant. Low maintenance doesn't mean no care. One of the biggest misconceptions is that water plants require no attention. They're low effort, but not completely hands-off. Clean water is key. Over time, oxygen levels drop and bacteria can build up, so changing the water every 2 to 4 weeks keeps the environment healthy. Light also plays a crucial role. While many water-grown plants tolerate low light, they still need some indirect sunlight to produce energy. Too little light slows growth, but too much direct sun can heat the water and stress the roots. Temperature actually matters more than most people realize. Room temperature water prevents shock, especially for tropical plants. Cold water can slow growth dramatically, while slightly warm conditions often encourage faster rooting. Fast growers versus slow establishers. Not all water plants behave the same way. Some root within days and grow aggressively, while others take weeks just to establish themselves. Fast growers, like vine-based plants, tend to dominate in water setups because they're naturally adapted to spreading and regenerating. These are perfect for beginners because, well, they provide quick results and visible progress. Slower plants, on the other hand, require patience. They may take a month or more to root, but once they do, they often become extremely resilient. These are ideal for folks who want long-term, stable plants rather than rapid propagation. Understanding this difference really helps set expectations. So, if nothing happens in the first week, it doesn't mean failure. It may just be a slower species doing its thing. The surprising role of neglect. Here's where things get interesting. Some plants actually respond well to a bit of, neglect. When water isn't constantly changed or conditions aren't perfectly controlled, certain species push harder to grow, sending out roots and new leaves in search of stability. this doesn't mean you should ignore your plants completely, but it does mean you don't need to obsess over them. In fact, overmanaging, changing water too frequently, moving plants around constantly, or overhandling roots can slow them down. Consistency beats perfection every time. Creating a clean, simple setup is honestly easier than you might think. You don't need expensive containers or specialized tools. Just a simple glass jar works perfectly. Plus, clear containers let you watch root development as it happens, which is really satisfying. If algae becomes an issue, you can always switch to a tinted or opaque container to help reduce light exposure in the water. Spacing matters too, by the way. Crowded roots end up competing for oxygen, so giving each plant enough room actually improves growth and prevents stagnation. If you want to take things a step further, adding a drop of liquid fertilizer every few weeks can totally boost long-term health. Since there's no soil to provide nutrients, this small addition keeps your plants vibrant over time. Let's talk about safety and practical considerations for a second. Not all water plants are safe for pets, and honestly, this is something people often overlook. Some of the most popular varieties have compounds that can cause irritation or even toxicity if chewed. So, placement becomes really important. Think high shelves, hanging jars, or out-of-reach windowsills. On the other hand, there are several water-friendly plants that are completely safe, making them perfect for households with curious pets or children. Knowing the difference is key to making sure your indoor garden is both beautiful and worry-free. Here's why this method lasts for years. The real beauty of growing plants in water is, honestly, the longevity. With just minimal care, consistent light, and the occasional water change, these plants can live for years without ever touching soil. Even better, they can be multiplied endlessly. One cutting becomes 2, 2 become 10, and before long, you've got an entire indoor garden from a single plant. This is where it goes beyond just convenience. It becomes something lasting, something you can share, gift, and even pass on. Water gardening, at its core, really strips things back to what matters most: light, water, and patience. No clutter, no complications, just steady growth you can actually see with your own eyes. If this opened your mind to a simpler way of growing, don't keep it to yourself. Share this with someone who could use a little easier gardening in their life, and make sure you're subscribed to Garden Smart for more practical, proven techniques like this.